Most people hear emergency fund and immediately roll their eyes. $1,000? In this economy? That is not even rent for a lot of people. It might not cover a serious car repair. It might not cover a hospital bill. It definitely does not make you rich. So it is easy to look at that number and think, what is the point? But your first $1,000 is not about becoming rich. It is about becoming harder to break at the very beginning. Because when there is nothing between you and life, every small problem becomes a financial crisis. A flat tire becomes credit card debt. A dentist bill becomes credit card debt. A school expense becomes credit card debt. A broken phone becomes credit card debt. And that is where people get stuck. Not because they never make progress. They do make progress. They pay an extra $100 on the card. They get caught up on a bill. They finally feel like maybe they can breathe. Then something breaks. The car starts making a noise. The washing machine quits. Hours get cut. A bill shows up that everyone forgot was annual, even though it comes every single year. And suddenly the progress is gone. The credit card comes back out. Not because you are reckless, not because you do not care, because the emergency needed an answer, and debt was the only answer available. I'm Evan, and if that cycle feels familiar, subscribe to Evan Gets It. This channel is for normal people who are tired of being told to build wealth when they are still trying to survive the next surprise. The budget was step one because it made the money visible. It showed where the paycheck was going, what was leaking, and what needed to change. But once you can see the money, the next question is simple. What do you do first? A lot of people want to run straight at debt, and emotionally that makes sense. Debt feels heavy. Debt feels embarrassing. Debt follows you around. Every statement is a reminder that some past version of you borrowed from the future. So when people finally get serious, they attack it immediately. They cut everything, throw every extra dollar at the balance, and feel motivated for about 3 weeks. Then life happens, and the plan breaks. That is the trap. They are trying to pay off old debt while still creating new debt every time life touches them. It is like draining a bathtub while the faucet is still running. You are working hard, but the water keeps coming back. That is why the first emergency fund matters. Not the full emergency fund, not 6 months of expenses, not some giant number that feels impossible from where you are standing. Just the first wall. For some people, that wall is $500. For some, it is $1,000. For some, especially if you have kids, an older car, unstable income, medical bills, or a house that always needs something, maybe the first wall is closer to $2,000. The exact number is not the magic. The wall is the magic. Because the first time something goes wrong and you do not have to borrow money to handle it, something changes in your body. It is not glamorous. Nobody claps because you paid for a tire. Nobody throws a party because you covered a copay. Nobody makes a motivational montage because you had the money for a car battery. But inside, it feels different. For once, life happened and you did not slide backward. That is a win most people underestimate. Sometimes the first financial victory is not getting ahead. Sometimes the first victory is not falling further behind. That is what your first $1,000 buys. Not freedom, not wealth, not peace forever. It buys one small moment where life does not get to turn a problem into a payment plan. And that moment matters because personal finance is not just math. It is morale. When every surprise pushes you backward, you start to believe progress is fake. You start thinking, why even try? Every time I save, something happens. Every time I pay debt, something happens. After a while, you stop making plans because plans feel embarrassing. You do not want to get excited just to be disappointed again. The Starter Emergency Fund gives you proof. Not proof that everything is fixed, proof that your choices can change one bad day. That proof is powerful. It teaches your brain that you are not completely helpless. It shows you that not every problem needs to become a balance. It gives you one reason to keep going. Imagine having $47 in savings. Not zero, but close enough that it still feels like nothing. You check it every few days like a wound, hoping it healed while you were not looking. Then slowly, 50 becomes 100. 100 becomes 300. The number is not impressive yet, but something inside you starts to believe money can stay. And there is another part nobody talks about. Having your first 1,000 can feel strange, because now you have something to lose. When your savings account says zero, everything is survival. When it finally says 1,000, your brain starts protecting it. That can make you cautious, maybe too cautious. You may feel scared to touch it, scared to lose it, scared that one mistake will send you back to zero. That fear is real. But the answer is not to avoid saving. The answer is to give the money a clear job. The job of this money is not to impress you. It is not to make you feel rich. It is not to sit there as a trophy. Its job is to stand guard between your life and more debt. That is why the money needs to be boring, not invested, not in something risky, not mixed into checking where it disappears into groceries and gas. Keep it separate enough that you do not accidentally spend it, but available enough that you can get it when life actually happens. And define what counts as an emergency before the emergency arrives. A sale is not an emergency. A weekend trip is not an emergency. Feeling sad on Amazon at midnight is not an emergency. An emergency protects your basic life: housing, food, transportation, health, work, and safety. That definition matters because without it, the emergency fund becomes another spending category. And this money is not there to make life more fun. It is there to make life less fragile. If saving 1,000 feels impossible, start smaller. Save 50, then 100, then 200. The number matters, but the habit matters too. You are proving to yourself that money can stay. For someone who has lived paycheck to paycheck, leaving money untouched is a new skill. It can feel wrong at first. It can feel like the money should be doing something. It is doing something. It is standing guard. And while it stands guard, you can make better choices with the rest of your money. You can pay bills with less panic. You can attack debt with less fear. You can stop treating every random expense like a personal failure. There is a confidence that comes from having even a small cushion. Before, a car repair sounded like, how am I going to survive this? After, it sounds like, I hate this, but I can handle it. Those are not the same sentence. One is panic. The other is inconvenience. And turning a panic into an inconvenience is one of the biggest financial upgrades you can experience early on. So after your budget shows you the truth, give your money its first mission. Build the wall. Protect it. Use it only when life truly hits. Then refill it as soon as you can. The refill part matters. If an emergency costs $300, the fund did its job. Do not shame yourself for using it. Just pause extra debt payments if you need to, rebuild the wall, and then keep going. That is how money starts to change. Slowly, boringly, honestly. First you see the truth, then you build the starter emergency fund. Then you stop relying on credit. Then you attack one debt. Then you breathe a little more. This kind of progress does not look impressive online. Nobody goes viral for opening the bank app without fear. Nobody claps because you saved your first $100. But inside, something changes. You start trusting yourself again. And trust with yourself may be the most underrated part of personal finance. Because when you do not trust yourself with money, every plan feels temporary. But every kept promise changes that story. So if your money disappears every month and every surprise knocks you backward, start here. Not with shame, not with perfection, not with a complicated system. Start with the first wall. If this helped you think about emergency savings differently, leave a comment with one word: wall, because that is what this is. Your first small wall between life and debt. And if you want more money advice for normal people who are tired of pretending adulthood is affordable, subscribe. I'm Evan, and I get it. The first $1,000 will not solve your whole life, and it is not supposed to. But it can stop the next problem from becoming the next payment. And sometimes, before you can move forward, the first thing you need is to stop getting knocked backward.